and welcome to another episode of the Audience Circle podcast, where we are informing you, the arts audience in Frisco. I'm Tammy Minershagen, the chair of the Frisco Arts Foundation, and I'm thrilled that we're going to be talking with Frisco Mayor Jeff Cheney today. So I've known Jeff for quite a long time. He was actually our real estate agent, and we had a lot of conversations in my living room about my experience of living in Frisco as an arts enthusiast, a musician, trying to find things for my kids to do. They were young at the time. So it's really exciting that now there is a project that will become a reality, a partnership with the city, the ISD, and Craig Hall, and we will see an art center in Frisco. I'm excited that we're going to get to hear from Jeff about his perspective on Frisco, the arts, and the art center. Jeff is a native Texan and served on the Frisco City Council from 2007 to 2016, and then was elected mayor in May 2017 and again in 2020. Since Mayor Cheney has taken office, Frisco has been recognized as the fastest growing city in America and the #1 best place to live by Money Magazine. Mayor Cheney and his wife Dana are co-founders of the Cheney Group, a top residential real estate firm based in Frisco. The Cheney Group recently joined forces with Monument Realty and offices at the Star. So excited to have Jeff join us. Let's add him to the stream now. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing real well. Thank you.
Are you in your office at City Hall right now?
I actually am. Yes. I always joke that the last place you'll find me is at City Hall, just because I like to be out and about in the community. And staff here this week, they've actually been joking that this is the most they've ever seen me since I've been elected. But we're trying to get a bunch of meetings scheduled, so Holly's been doing a good job with that.
That's great. Well, I recognize the local art behind you.
That's right.
Yes.
That is part of our campaign. In fact, a lot of cities are starting to copy it now. We actually highlight a local artist. And so they provide the art to the mayor and council's office here, and we display their name, and you can actually come here and buy their artwork and learn more about them. So it's been a great program for us.
That's wonderful. I love that it's going to be replicated in other cities too. So not a lot of people might know your background. Can you share how long you've been in Frisco, a little bit about your family, and what made you want to get into public service?
Yeah, so I'm a Longhorn, which is this football season tough to admit. My wife went to Baylor, so she definitely has bragging rights in the household. But I started my career as a CPA at Price Waterhouse in Houston. That's where Dana and I met. And really what brought us to the area back in 2000 was a job opportunity I got at a hedge fund. And so we moved to Dallas. Dana was actually the visionary because we were in our mid-20s and she immediately wanted to move to Frisco. And so you can imagine looking in Frisco in 2000, there was nothing here. Right. And the mall had literally just opened. And I told her there was no way we were moving to Frisco. And so we settled on North Dallas. Of course, she was right the whole time, and just a couple of years later, we moved into Frisco. So we've now been Frisco residents for almost 20 years.
Wow, that's incredible. And I mean, what made you want to start serving then?
Dana and I kind of put our roots down here in Frisco. We decided we wanted to really be a part of this community. So I kind of started out serving on the Frisco Education Foundation. That's a passion of mine because when I was a high school student, I received a scholarship from an organization very similar, and I actually paid my own way through college. It's one of my, I guess I'd say my favorite personal achievements, and I knew that I was going to have to do that at an early age. Had I not received that scholarship, it may have required me to do a gap year or those kinds of things. So that foundation, what they're doing is a huge passion of mine. And just in Frisco, as you know, Tammy, once you kind of stick your toe in the water and start getting involved, there's an energy here, and you just want to do more and more. And I started going to council meetings just to learn what was happening and observing. And, you've heard me tell the story that I've done something crazy every time we had a baby. And so, when our daughter was born, that's when I decided, hey, this is a perfect time here in 2007 for me to be running for city council. So that's what got us started.
Right.
Here we are almost 15 years later.
Wow. Well, you're absolutely right. Just once you kind of get your toe wet in getting involved and trying to make a difference, I mean, it just keeps going, and it kind of takes over. I want to personally thank you for appointing me to the bond committee back in the day to advocate for Performing Arts Center. And the bonds passed, which is very exciting. Of course, now that's allowing this project to come to fruition. Wanted to ask you a little bit about what actually a bond is for those who might not be familiar. Why is the Performing Arts Center funded through bonds? Will it affect our taxes?
Yeah, I mean, so, fast growth city, like Frisco, obviously you can't build large capital projects out of cash, right? And so we issue debt for many projects, all the way from roads. I think in the next year we're planning to build over $100 million worth of roads just to keep up with our growth. Facilities, we're building a $60 million library right now. So there's a lot of different capital projects. When we put those out to the voters, they're all voter approved. And so when we advertise our bond sales, as does the school district, we put an estimated tax rate saying that if we were to sell all these bonds, then this is what you would expect your tax rate to be. And so we always err on the side of caution. In fact, we have never really even come close to those advertised tax rates. We've always been much below. And so that's something that our finance team is really, really proud of. So, a lot of these projects are funded out of growth as we're needed. So our tax base is growing every single year. Our sales tax, is a big driver. Stonebriar Mall was really the first economic engine here in Frisco. Probably the most significant project Frisco's ever done is winning that mall project and, continuing to grow that. I mean, we're seeing kind of record numbers right now, which is all good news. So Frisco's budget is healthy. We're thriving. We've come out of COVID, better than we think anyone. And our business climate right now is off the charts. And so it's all exciting times here for Frisco and, great times for us to be looking forward to say, okay, what projects do we need to fill, like a Performing Arts Center, to really balance out the needs of this community.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the arts tourism state in Frisco and how this might assist.
So we just had our Visit Frisco annual meeting. They actually did a 3-year strategic plan. And so one thing that's good about Marla and their team is they're actually doing a lot of data-driven work. So we use Buxton's, and so we actually have data as far as why people leave Frisco. And what we've learned is that things that tourists would love to view in your community are the same thing that people that live here would also enjoy. So they're not mutually exclusive. They're actually kind of one and the same. Mm-hmm. So like through that data, for instance, a couple of years ago, we learned that people were leaving Frisco to go to downtown districts like Old Town McKinney. They were going to breweries. They were going to entertainment experiences. And so that, gave us the confidence. That's part of why we're putting in $20 million into the rail district right now. It's why we changed our ordinances to allow brew pubs, and we'll start seeing some of those come to Frisco. But what we learned this year is that our biggest opportunities, we won't call them weaknesses, they're opportunities, mm-hmm. is that, Frisco needs live music, and we hear that constantly. That's actually on council's top 10 list right now. And then upscale performing arts was the very top as far as kind of needs as a community. And so when you look at kind of rounding out as a community from just a tourist perspective, you're always looking for those reasons for people to want to stay, one more night. When the PGA opens and we start hosting majors, that 7 million annual visitor, one day we'll be talking about over 10 million visitors every single year. And so that's just a huge economic engine for us. The more that why we're known as Sports City USA, why it's so important for us to kind of round out as a community with the arts is for reasons like that, which is, people will then, do maybe a business trip here during the week and they've got a family at home that loves arts that want to fly in for the weekend and actually experience Frisco. And so, it's a big part of our mission right now. And that's just from the tourist side. What's most important is the people that actually live here, right? And just the student opportunity. Most of our families, you've got different passions within the same household. You may have some children who play sports and then others that do performing arts and so forth. And so, of course, my kids play sports and that they got to, play in the Star and Toyota Stadium and just, really kind of have that lifelong experience. Most of our kids will never go on to play professional sports, but for a small moment in time, they know what it felt like to be treated like a professional. So I think that's kind of what we're dreaming of here with the Performing Arts Center is that same student opportunity where, You may not have every student that comes through Frisco ISD end up in Broadway or, in New York on a stage somewhere, but for this moment in time, they can dream of it, and then you never know what would happen.
I mean, it's so exciting to think about. And of course, my kids are all in the arts, so I'm sad that they're not going to be able to experience that growing up through Frisco, but it will be for the next generation. When we think about this Performing Arts Center coming together now, and like you said, dreaming big, if you could wave a magic wand and have everything that you'd like to see in this Performing Arts Center, what would it have?
Well, let me kind of just first kind of lay the groundwork of where we are, and then I'll paint that picture.
Sure.
So we are, Frisco ISD, of course, they're our number one, partner, and they certainly have needs, and they were, voted a bond approval, $43 million, which sounds like a whole lot of money. And of course, the city, had funds available, and so I think it kind of brings the public funds. $67 million, I think. We've toured some facilities, and we went and saw the Plano facility that they're just completed, Plano ISD, and their project in today's dollars we're estimating would probably cost $65 to $70 million. And so, even just to build that project, the school board and the city and our private partner, Craig Hall, I think we've got a bigger vision for that. If that were our baseline, that's our baseline. Well, the school district doesn't even have enough money to build that right now. Their $43 million doesn't go as far as you think it would. So it behooves all of us to work together as partners to, deliver that plus more. And so to answer your question, if I had an unlimited budget and it didn't impact maintenance and operations costs and everything, what I would love to see is a beautiful facility that our students are able to enjoy, whether it's 1,500 seats, 1,800 seats, 2,000 seats, that they can enjoy kind of those luxury experience like we do at our sports venues where we add suites in there. Quite frankly, the community side as well. I've seen many theaters been really uninspiring. And so why can't we think about those different? And so most of the community theaters, which is kind of the city side, is usually just an empty box with their fold-away chairs that you put out, or we've seen some that kind of stack up into the wall and kind of come out. But why can't we build, kind of more of a premium experience into that as well? And so, I think there are opportunities to increase the student opportunities in this venue, and that it's not just the large main hall, but then if we can create a very similar type quality experience in the city side that the school district could also use, you've doubled the number of kind of nights essentially that the school district could use. And they may not need the full venue for every performance. And then maybe we're using this venue to have additional classrooms in there for them to use. That can be classrooms during the day. It can flip over and you can rent it for a private party at night. So really kind of creating those different types of spaces to serve the public needs when the school isn't using it. I've talked to Craig about a private club model. I think there would be a huge demand for that.
Definitely. We
see that the Star has been able to do that. The PGA is doing that. And I think, Tammy, I think all your listeners would probably, you could start a list of people who would sign up and be willing to be a part of that. And just kind of imagine a private club, maybe with a terrace that overlooks the park. I think you could do extraordinary things with that. I'd love to see some type of outdoor stage, attached to it, kind of leading into the park. So, now by working as partners with the school district and our private partner, everybody is getting more. And that's how these public-private partnerships have benefited the city, right? Is that the school district wins because not only are they getting their needs from the larger venue, they'd be getting access to a smaller venue that serves the city and the public, access to a stage, and then our students and our parents that are using it are having performances that are, like my son playing football in the Star, right? That they may have the private suites and have a VIP room and all these different types of things and learn how all that works. And so, I think that dream is attainable. I really do. I mean, it's just you almost have to will it to happen, I think.
Right.
And it's just really working with our partners. And I think when we look with the architects, we'll just see. And so one kind of example I fall back on is what we learned from the arena, Comerica Arena. Well, when the city first built that, I think we had a budget of $20 million to build it. And the first day that it opened, it was obsolete. It was too small. It just kind of was in an awkward space where it wasn't big enough to have certain events and too small for, so, we had to go back in and do a separate issue where, we spent $20 million for the original facility. We came back and spent $25 million.
Wow.
We had to change the roof line. We had to add suites. We had to add more seats, to get it to a market competitive situation. And so I think in hindsight, if we would have done the arena before, even if we didn't necessarily have all the money up front, we should have looked at it and said, okay, well, let's at least build a shell that's big enough to accommodate kind of future needs and future growth and expansion. And in my mind, that's kind of what I see, happening here. I mean, we've had some calls with private fundraisers. There's money out there. I think they want to know what their money would go towards. And so just picture maybe you have a 10-phase plan where phase 10 is the magic wand dream, right? That you may never get to, but you aspire to. Phase 1 is what we have today, serves the ISD's needs, and we can build it and fund it today. And then, if a Toyota or a, local organization says, I'm going to come in, I want to give you X amount for naming rights, and that's going to build your suites. And then so we need to raise another $20 million to add the 300-seat mezzanine, or to finish out some of these classrooms or those types of things. Then, I think that's a way to work through it.
I think that's really exciting. And that's typically how fundraising happens with these performing arts centers is it's after design, so people can start to see where their money's going to go, and especially those naming rights. You were talking about Comerica and how it was obsolete after it was, built. That just leads me to the question about the Frisco population. Where are we right now, and at what number are we kind of built out?
Yeah, we're at a roughly 215,000. We'll probably end up, let's just call it, 300,000, maybe slightly over. It's tough to project an exact number, but I'd say, we probably, will have another 80 to 100,000 residents when it's all said and done. Mm-hmm. But, really you have to look at the region as a whole. And, this area is kind of an epicenter for really what we would consider its own, major metropolitan area in and of itself. And so it's just going to continue to go north with prosperous. Salina's exploding. There's going to be a lot of population in this region. And so, that's one of the things that you have to look at is, kind of what are your needs today, right? And our school district isn't even built out, right? So they have needs as of today, and those needs are only going to grow. But the region, in and of itself, will be able to support, kind of its own services. And so, when we, had conversations, of course, with people that put on the Dallas summer musicals and so forth, I think some of those conversations were, what demand will look like 10, 15, 20 years from now, and there will be significant demand. Right.
Well, final question for you. What do you think Frisco is going to look like 20 years from now? Where do you see yourself 20 years from now?
Hopefully I'm still around, that's a start. We'll be largely built out. I'll always be involved in Frisco. Certainly, I love this community, and, who knows after I'm done being mayor, what that would look like. I'd be involved with the business community or economic development or, just helping projects around here. But, I think that Frisco will be a dynamic community. I mean, you're going to see Hall Park kind of 20 years will look completely different than it does today, with the urban park is especially part of it. Frisco Station, that whole area will transform. The whole northern part of our city is going to look like a bomb hit it, with the PGA and kind of the halo effect that goes around that. And, our communities to the north, are going to be, largely built out as well, where, again, kind of this kind of 5 to 10 mile radius, people aren't going to want to leave it anymore. They're not going to want to go to Dallas for entertainment or restaurants or, shopping. They're like, we're going to want to get all those things here. And so whoever delivers that, as we continue to grow, is going to really reap the benefits and the rewards of it. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, I don't know where I'll be in 20 years either, but I do hope I'm still enjoying this whole area and that it's thriving with arts and culture. So I want to thank you for your time today, Mayor Jeff, and thank you for always thinking big and dreaming big, listening to your constituents, trying to get to yes. I really believe that the big vision can happen. Really wouldn't see it without you. So thank you for caring about it. And I'm excited for you to meet our next guests on the Audience Circle podcast. So we'll see you next time.
Thank you.